Hello YouTube and welcome to the second video in our Learning Python series. Today in this video we're going to be talking about variables and data types. So let's start with a variable. A variable in Python is a way of storing information. So for example, let's first make a variable. We're going to call this variable variable1. So this is a variable. We're going to assign it to a string called hello world. We will talk about strings and integers and floats and booleans later in this video. So variable 1 is hello world, and let's print variable 1, and Python prints hello world. That is because variable 1 is equal to hello world. So when we call variable 1, that's the same thing as calling hello world. So let's make a second variable. Let's call it variable 2. And we're going to have that equal to goodbye world. Alright, now what happens when we add variable underscore 2 to variable 1? It says hello world and goodbye world. This is called string concatenation. That is when you add two strings together, and the Python pretty much smooshes them together and makes this. So in this case, it says hello world, and we added that to goodbye world. Python uses string concatenation to make it hello world, goodbye world. So it smooshes the two words together. So what if we make a mistake and we call this uppercase variable underscore 2? Python will run an error because this variable is not defined. That means we have not created a variable called variable 2, even though we have, but this is an uppercase v, or this is a lowercase v. So Python is very specific to what variable names you're going to use. So the difference between an uppercase letter and a lowercase letter can ruin your code. So you have to be very careful when you do this, when you make variables, but you'll get used to it. So what if we make variable 1 equal to 1 and variable 2 equal to 2? So see that Python printed 3 instead of 1, 2, or 12. That is because it is string concatenation, and these are numbers, which are called integers in Python, which we'll talk about later. And so instead, Python is just doing some math for us and just adding 1 to 2. Okay, so now let's talk about what strings, or what data types are. So let's just comment this code out, which you do by just putting a hashtag in front of what you would like to comment out. So Python will not run this code. So there are four main types, or let's put this on a comment. There are four main types of data types. There are four data types. The first one is a string, which is something that consists of letters. So for example, back in our other example, hello world consists of letters, so it is a string. Number 2 is, here, let's just make this a little neater. Number 2 is a float, or an integer, also known as int. So an integer is a whole number, which means that it does not have a decimal after it. So 1.0 is an integer, but not 1.1. 1.1 is a float, which is a non-whole number, or a number with a fraction, or decimal. So for example, 1.1, but not 1, because 1.1 has a decimal, making it a float. And the last type, which we're not going to talk about today, is a boolean. A boolean is something either true or false. That is all. A boolean is true or false. So for example, is a cat equal to a dog? And then that would be false. Or is a cat equal to a cat, which would be true. But we're not going to talk about booleans right now. So let's just delete that. Just know that those are the 4 types. So let's talk about what a string is. So again, a string is, let's come back to our variable 1 example. So now we know that variable 1, when it's equal to hello world, it is a string because it consists of letters by our definition. And we know that variable 2 is a integer. And let's create a new variable called variable 3, and let's have that equal to 3.1. Now let's try and add all of these together. What do you think will happen? We'll do hello world, then 5.1, or hello world 23.1. Well, let's see. So Python runs an error. It says can only concatenate string, not integer, to string. So again, as we talked about before, string concatenation is pretty much the squishing of 2 different variables. But it's string concatenation again, so you can't squish a string with an integer or a string with a float. So that is why Python runs an error. However, in Python we can also declare that things are strings, integers, and floats. We can simply do this by doing string, or str, which is short for string, and then we can also do str around variable 3. So in Python, you can make an integer into a string, but you cannot turn a string into an integer. So when we print this, Python does hello world 23.1 because when we did string, all of these turned into strings. So that string concatenated and it squished all of them together. So let's say we forgot what type of variable we created. Well, we can just check by using the function called type. So let's put variable underscore 1 inside type. So that's the variable that we don't know. And let's print that. Print type variable 1. Python will run class string. That is saying that the type of data type that variable 1 is a string, which we know is correct. Let's try variable 2. Class int, and we know that 2 is a whole number, so that is correct. And finally 3. It is a float, and we know that it is a decimal number, so it is a float. So that is how to check whether or what type of data type your variable is. That can be very important later on in the future. So in this video, we covered some data types, and we defined some variables. So you learned what the 4 main data types are and how to declare variables. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to like and subscribe, and comment down below if you have any questions or any suggestions. Thank you, and goodbye.